Welcome to the Digitize Fully Charged Podcast. My name is Niall and I'm joined as always by Pam Curry. Now our guest today is the incredible Harriet Benbow. I met Harriet a number of years ago back at university when we were on the same placement, and since then she's been making absolute waves across the whole country, making sure that all of our learners have an equitable learning experience and that digital technologies are making that impact for our educators and our learners. So, without much further ado, let's jump into Harriet's episode. Cheers.
Hey everyone, really excited by today's guest. Harriet Benbow has been many things in her career, a primary teacher at heart. She's also had some roles with Perth and Cross Council as an ESO, working on digital learning. And the big news in the last couple of weeks is that Harriet has just received a Rising Star Award, which we'll find out later in the episode. But the best person to tell us all about Harriet is probably Harriet, so I'm going to hand over to her now.
Hello, hi, and it's lovely to come on to your podcast finally. I think we've had a few dates, haven't we?
I know,
many.
But yeah, I think you've pretty much summed me up already in that little introduction. Yeah, I'm a primary teacher for Perth and Ross Council. I have also worked as an education support officer for digital learning and teaching, and I have most recently been a principal teacher for Raising Attainment. So yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. We've been looking forward to having you on the show for ages, Harriet. So thanks very much for giving up your time on a sunny Friday.
I know,
And not
it's
even
sunny.
just any day, it's a sunny day and it's a Friday. So we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No worries.
So tell us where you're at. Tell us what's happening right now in your life.
Yeah.
You're back in school, is that right? Can you tell us how that's been for you?
It's actually been so lovely. It's been so nice to be back with learners. I think it's reminded me why I became a teacher. It was, don't get me wrong, I had a great time doing the education support officer role, and I learned loads in a very short space of time. But it's been really good being back with learners, building relationships with them, and also trying out a lot of the skills that I'd learned as an ESO, because I guess you know, digital moves really fast. And once I was out of school, I was learning things. Things were emerging that I wasn't using previously when I was teaching. So things like AI, and, you know, even just more advanced kind of apps and stuff. So it's been great to actually use these with real life classes again, which has been really great.
What are the classes you've been working with?
Predominantly young ones. So actually it's been really lovely because I haven't done early years in about 6 years. So I'm back with an early years class at the moment. So that's been really interesting to work with them in terms of digital.
How do you find that? Are they more accustomed to using touchscreens? Are they using things like Bbots? What are you using with them?
iPads is a big thing, definitely.
Yeah.
Amazingly, though, they all can log into the computers. They have managed to do that, which is great. And they do know their, like, how to navigate to their favorite kind of websites and things like that, which is really good. A Bbot, you can't go wrong with a Bbot, though. Like, classic. It's an absolute classic. It's so robust as well, isn't it? Out of all the devices, it's just such a great wee thing.
Yeah.
But
I was playing with one this morning. It was see-through. I could actually, you could see all the parts inside. I hadn't seen those ones.
I love that, the wires.
I've seen the spheros like that.
Yes, it was like a Sphero. Yeah, it was like a Bebop version of a Sphero.
Is it a
That's
blue
quite
bot?
cool.
Blue bot.
It looked like a bee. It looked like the Bebop. Yeah.
But they're Bluetooth as well, and I think they're see-through. But it might be.
Maybe it'd been that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've
you
got
could
to
maybe
play now.
hook it up to an iPad and then use it that way. So yeah, and another thing that's come out, which I am loving, is Wonder Blocks. Have you watched Wonder Blocks?
No.
What's this?
Number blocks was always a thing when I used to.
I know number blocks and alpha blocks.
Wonder Blocks has come out, and it's all to do with computational thinking. So it's like really short 5-minute episodes about kind of computational thinking, instructions, repetition, commands, all of those sort of things. And just 5 minutes, it builds up. So the first episode's all about Go. and it's just like this little character going, and it's like saying to the kids, well, if you don't have a stop, then that little thing's going to go around forever. One stop, and then just adding commands as it goes. But it's such a great thing. And to be honest, I taught primary 4 to 6 the other day, and we were speaking about like direction and things like that. And I actually used a clip from that to explain how to give clear instructions. So again, it's another way of doing kind of unplugged computational thinking. You know, all that barefoot resources is great, but one blocks is kind of a supplement to that. So
you have to check this out. So that sounds great.
It's really good. So yeah, it's just a really good way for them to kind of visually understand that kind of computational language.
Yeah.
So, amazing. I love that. Well, there you go. See, that's the thing, isn't it? You have to talk to each other to find out about cool new stuff that you might not have discovered.
100%. Absolutely. And I think, see, like the social media aspect, you know, Twitter used to be amazing for sharing practice. And it's like I still put the odd thing on Twitter, but I'm definitely not using it as much. I don't love what pops up. But
same.
And LinkedIn's great, but I feel like I miss a lot on LinkedIn. I don't know. It doesn't come up.
There's so many things that it says from like the post is from a week ago, and I'm like, this is important. I should have seen this before now. Yeah.
So it's not quite like the same as Twitter.
No, I know.
Yeah, and I like Instagram. I like your Instagram, Niall. I think it's really good.
Cheers.
I think that's the best place to like share good practice is, you know, have a wee look at some quick videos. And I guess like professional learning's changed, hasn't it, over the course of especially since COVID. Like gone are the days of going and traveling after school to sit for like 2 hours and learn about something. People are now wanting like quick little bite-sized things, podcasts. Like there's loads of great educational podcasts out there, and then you can put it on when you're driving to work or coming home. It's
you can immerse yourself in that world.
Yeah, and I think social media is brilliant for that as well. But I just wish there was more of a education platform for that. I always think like, you know, GTCS, I feel like they could create some sort of social media for us all, where instead of doing our like, you know, logging all our CLPL, we could maybe just be putting things up, because I had my sign-off year last year and I had to just go through my social media and think, right, what training did I do?
What have I done?
Yeah.
Imagine if you could share that there and then and people could learn from each other.
That'd be great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And isn't this a fascinating chat though? Like when you think about it, like we are all educators and we are talking about how our educator attitude to professional learning has changed since COVID. It's interesting, isn't it? Because essentially our learners' attitude to learning will have changed since COVID too.
100%.
And nobody's really talking about that. The fact that they need bite-sized learning available 24/7, accessible when they're in the car or the bus. And that's the bit that I really struggle with just now, with everything else and the lack of funding for devices and all the rest of it. Like I know so many parents who are on the verge of removing their children from mainstream school because they're struggling with it so much. And it's like the statistics, something like 1 in 4 children not going to school.
Even the mental health aspect, like I think a lot of our young people since COVID have found it really difficult to socialize and are being like anxious about different things, and devices can massively help that. I know there is the argument that it can cause these, and I'm absolutely in agreement with that. If you sit a child in front of a device all day, every day, of course there's
nobody's going to suggest that the way. That's what really annoys me. Like nobody's ever going to suggest that, but having it there whenever you might need it to operate in a way that the rest of the world works.
And media really put out there that one-to-one device is them suddenly, and I remember us speaking about this, Niall, about we're not going to suddenly burn the books. Like we're not going to suddenly have them sitting in front of a screen all day, and we're not going to get them to read. We're not going to get them to write. We're not going to get them to like you do drama. We're not going to get them to be creative. Of course, we're going to do all these things, but I think you've got to think of like a device as a tool in a tool belt, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I always said when I did training with people, don't just do digital for digital's sake. Don't do it to tick a box. Like, think about, is this digital device actually enhancing your learning and teaching?
Yeah.
And can you do it a different way? If you can do it a different way, why are you putting a device in front of them? Because that's very expensive.
Exactly.
But there's lots of reasons why putting a device in front of young people is actually enhancing their learning. And also
Absolutely.
the accessibility features are just,
That's
you know,
That's the bit where you win the argument, eh? Like, surely.
it's what won me over, because I wasn't very digitally minded. I wasn't using digital a lot when I actually started kind of my digital journey. I was very much in a class.
Did you not say that, like, you literally went to, like, some senior manager or other and said, I think I need to develop myself more in digital? And they were like, oh,
Yeah.
well, you should just become the digital lead for the school then.
Absolutely. No, so watch what you put in your PRD, because I put in my PRD as my area for development, digital. I was like, because I'm really not sure how to do that in my class. I wasn't really very confident with it, and I didn't have a lot of devices. So I was like, how do I was looking at these E's and O's and digital literacy and thinking, how do I teach this when I don't have devices? So I put it in my PRD, and then my head teacher was like, oh, so Harriet, could you maybe lead digital next year? And I was thinking, no, I can't. I'm obviously very thankful now, but so I then just started learning things myself, and going to different training. And at that point, Michael Conlon worked at Perth and Kinross, so I went to a lot of Michael Conlon training. So that was really good. So I ended up learning a lot about the iPads, and I think the thing that won me over was I had a group of learners in the class. It was like an upper stages class, but I had about 4 different learners who had additional support needs, and at least 2 or 3 of them had dyslexia. So they found it really difficult to do any extended piece of writing, and they found reading really tricky. And there was one day, sat them down to do the good old reading groups, and I took this reading group out and I put the book in front of them, and they were like, oh, we've had this book like 3 times. And I was thinking, what? Why have you had this book 3 times? But it's obviously because we didn't have enough of other schemes, because reading schemes are so expensive. We didn't have anything else to give them to practice that reading. So they had to really have something to practice the kind of basics. And so, I started printing stuff off, costing a fortune, all of this different stuff. And then I looked at Book Creator, and I was like, this is amazing. So I started making some digital books for them, and that was amazing. So they were enjoying that. And then I started looking at like the reader view, so like the immersive reader, but Apple's version. So then they started using reader view to read the same books as their peers, which was like transformational, really, because you just saw the boost in them. They were able to go from reading books that they felt were quite babyish to reading these stories that everyone else was reading, and they could participate in talking about the stories, and and all of this took a bit of time. This I'm speaking about this as if it happened in a week. It was
there's a lot of work gone in here.
It was definitely a lot of training, but then they started using the iPad for their writing, and they were able to produce amazing pieces of writing. Especially, I think Book Creator is really good for structuring story, because it's different pages. Because text to speech is great, but they could literally speak into a notes app and have pages and pages without a full stop or anything. Whereas Book Creator kind of gets them to think about that. Right? Okay, that's going to be next page. What
Beginning,
can we do
middle,
here?
end.
That sort of thing. So that was just really, for me, that was it. After that, I just thought, this is amazing that I can get these kids to do different pieces of work, but participate in whole class lessons. And the only thing I would say that is a flaw with what I did was it was the learners that had additional support needs, because I only had 4 devices. So
Yeah.
they got those devices, whereas my dream would be to have devices in front of the class that anyone could go and pick up to.
Yeah.
I would rather do my story on this today, or I'd rather create an animation to go along with my understanding of the book I've read, So I wish there was more flexibility with that, and I wish everyone had devices for that reason, not so
Yeah.
that I make everyone go onto the device and do that, but so that they had that option. I think
They've got that personalization there.
it still makes learners feel excluded when
Yeah.
it should
Yes.
be an inclusive thing, but they are feeling different because they
Well,
are,
yeah, absolutely.
using.
Because like things like reading age doesn't always correlate with chronological age. So
Yeah,
if you've got somebody who's either like a P7 reading at a younger age or a P1 who's reading at a much older age, the things that they're reading about, the context of these stories, are either going to be, if it's the P7, it's going to be feel too young for them potentially, or if it's
completely.
the younger ones, they may not have even come across some of these life experiences yet. They don't understand how these different parts work. So yeah, they can read the words, but is there then that understanding?
Definitely.
So having that ability to then use tools to create stories and build that immersive world around them that uses their own experiences, I think that's a fantastic thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that, I think that's the only thing I would say is still the missing piece, is that we don't always have enough devices for it. And that it's just the unfortunate reality at the moment in
Yeah,
education, is that we just don't have it. And, schools are using them in such creative ways, but if every local authority is taking a different approach at the moment
yeah,
to
Yeah.
using digital. And I think that's the thing that is missing, is a wee bit of consistency there.
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
postcode lottery, isn't it? Like
It
there are
really
some
is.
local authorities where they've had one-to-one devices for about 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
Stirling
hmm
Council springs to mind as one that
Yeah.
implemented its one-to-one, and yet there are others, big authorities where lots of children and young people go to school, where you're talking about sharing a few iPads if you're
And
lucky.
the thing is, we're preparing our learners for the world of work. At the end of the day, every single adult now uses a device for work. Whatever they do, they're going
yeah,
to at some point log onto a device and have to
Aye,
have a little bit of digital literacy to navigate whatever device they need for work, whether it's a delivery driver using their touch pad,
yeah,
whether it is, like, there's people out there that have to send emails. There's all this conference calls that go on now after COVID. There's so many different things. And I think the wider thing is, as well, and another thing that I feel quite passionately about, is the older generation who have not grown up with digital technology and are
yep,
almost getting left behind. And,
yes,
even when you park your car now, you cannot pay for parking unless you have an app. And you just
yep,
think,
yep,
well, my granddad would not want to pay for parking with an app, and it's
no,
yep,
not fair that that people are not getting the opportunities to explore that.
hmm
It's really quite difficult.
Well,
Yeah,
even in Aberdeen, there's been this whole thing recently of people putting up fake QR
I
code
saw that.
stickers, yeah, on
I've
the
been
pay machines.
scammed by that. I've
Yeah,
literally been scammed by
yeah.
that in Hebden Bridge in
And
England.
that's the thing, if you don't have that digital literacy to like backtrack or to work out how do I fix this, or how
Yeah,
do I use the correct website address as opposed to using the
Yeah,
QR code, like it's just there's so many pitfalls. It's so
and
it's
tricky out there.
terrible.
and that yeah, and that's where cyber resilience and internet safety is now more than don't speak to a stranger online. Because
Oh yeah,
I think that was the classic, and it's absolutely still something you need to teach, but there is a whole thing of cyber attacks going on,
Yep.
yeah,
scamming, phishing, emails, and they're getting far more advanced.
Yeah.
And AI, there's going to be so much coming through that we don't even know what that's going to look like yet. And
hmm
I think our young people and people that maybe haven't had the technology growing up,
hmm
like there needs to be something to make sure that everyone is educated on how to keep safe online, because there's so many dangers now.
And do you know what I think quite a fascinating, it's probably controversial this, right? But when did we ever shy away from a little bit of
Love
controversy? But
controversial.
what is happening? So basically what we've just described in all of this is that technology in the workplace, in all of our lives, is everywhere. It is just an integral part of our daily life, like, having a watch on used to be, right? It's just
Yep.
there. And so the way we work at work is that there is a kind of harmony goes on between working at a computer that you're facing the screen and then having some downtime where you're still working but on your phone and checking an email. Or so
Yes.
there's this transfer that goes on between your personal mobile device, your phone, and then your computer where you would sit down and build something or develop something or write something. But what I find fascinating is that we've also just spoken about the fact that there is a postcode lottery for devices in school, and 50% of that tech solution every single young person has got in their pocket. But what we've decided to do in education is lock them in lockers for the whole day. And I'm like, really? When we've also got, AI presentation tools like Curipod, where all you need to do is scan it with a QR code, which a mobile phone would be great at, and then you're taking part in an interactive discussion that is far more engaging to you as a young person than, Mr. Smith with his leather elbow patches and his dull voice telling you about the Industrial Revolution. I'm like, how are we not getting this? Why is everybody thinking, oh, let's ban the phones instead of let's integrate them successfully into the lessons so that they're playing an active part in the whole experience? It's just...
I understand why there's fears around having
So
phones in school.
So do I.
Do understand that. And there's a massive concern about, some of the things that learners are accessing online, and even the fact that they're so obsessed with their phones that they can't have them taken off of them. But I think banning them and taking them away from them is not solving that problem, because I know I didn't get a mobile until I started secondary school, I think. Like when the mobiles suddenly had the internet and stuff like that, everyone was so obsessed with them. Whereas I feel like now I'm getting to the stage where I'm more aware about, if I'm on a device all the time, what's happening and how the impact that would have on me. So I'm starting to do things like put on focus time at night, so I'm not getting a million notifications, and I'm not going to sit doom scrolling, as I say, all night. So, but learners need to be taught that, because they're not going to understand that. So, and we're the adults, so we need to be able to tell them the importance of setting boundaries, the same way that there's importance at exercising, there's importance of eating healthily. We need to be teaching them why they need to be able to switch off, and they need to be able to have a look at their phone and, get their screen time up and see, oh, you're on your screen this amount of time out the day. Do you think that's really that healthy? There needs to be these conversations going on, not just lock it in a bag and, well, it's now locked in a bag so you can't access it. There needs to be more than that going on, because how's that teaching them to then be adults who think, I've spent enough time on a device today, I'm going to go and have a walk outside, If you don't understand the importance, why would you do it in the future?
That's so true.
So true.
We need to practice. We need to practice the behaviours, don't we?
But we need to have devices in school to teach how to use a device creatively, because I love what Apple say about being creators, not consumers.
Yes, exactly.
And the only way that our young people are going to be creators rather than consumers is if they're on a device creating, because if they've not got any access to that, they're not going to know how to develop those skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's the thing for me that's fascinating, is that we're banning all the stuff that you actually use in the world to create content.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we're expecting them to work like we did in 1997, where everybody learned words.
And I think this is what I hope comes from obviously the curriculum improvement cycle. Like, I really hope that it's going to be a future-proof model that is created, because there's no point in planning a curriculum for the now. Everything's progressing really quickly, and it is an uncertain future. We don't know what it's going to look like, and our role as educators has changed massively over time. So I think, and I like what I've heard so far. I've listened to the podcast, Education Scotland podcast with Ollie Bray, and I like what I hear about, it's not just about knowledge-based, learning. It's about skills as well.
The reason that I have got faith in that whole process is actually Ollie Bray. I believe in that guy because we've seen his journey, and I've lived and breathed his journey through early incarnations of Glow and whatever else, and then he put his money where his mouth was, and he went to Kinsey High School and reinvented the curriculum there, and he proved his point rather beautifully. So for him now to be leading our nation on that, I think we're in safe hands, as long as the profession goes along with his kind of vision.
And I love what he was saying as well about the fact that it's being led by educators, and it's not being led by educators that have, it's not only educators that have been in the job for like 20 years, it's new educators, it's all sorts, a real mix, and it's not just the most confident. I think he said something like he didn't want, the small voices not to be heard, and like, we've all been there, haven't we, in rooms where there's people that are more confident, that know more about something, and you just think, oh, I'm not going to speak because I'll look. But you might have a great idea, and I think that is really key, because there's so many educators out there that have great ideas but are not confident enough to maybe share that, or don't know how to put their ideas forward. So I think having it shaped by a variety of voices is really key.
What are they doing, right then? So that's, again, it's making my educator head think to the classroom again, and I'm like, right, well, that's the same problem in the classroom, isn't it? The quiet voices that are never heard, and that's where I get really excited about things like Curipod or like Mentimeter or whatever, that'll allow them to give their opinion. Like, are Education Scotland using digital solutions to gather more feedback and opinion from the profession? Like, how are they doing it? In fact, doing a podcast, that's quite an innovative step forward, isn't it? Reaching more people, maybe reaching those voices that aren't normally the vocal ones. So
and again, I love that. I love that they're thinking differently in terms of podcasts and stuff like that, because I think that's recognizing how professional learning has changed. And we always all speak about the fact that teachers are busy, and we all know teachers are busy, but at the same time we still want to learn and develop. So it's finding these solutions, and definitely I think listening to a podcast is a brilliant way of reaching large audiences, and
it's accessible,
not taking out too much time of someone's day.
What are those podcasts that you're listening to? Are you, is it like just Education Scotland side, or are you more of a like an off menu kind of? What are the podcasts that you're listening to?
I love Off Menu.
I absolutely love Off Menu. That's my dog walking podcast. Sometimes you're laughing out loud, and then you realise that you're walking in public, and you think, "Oh, I must look." Especially because I've got AirPods, so I don't have the wire. So people will be like, "What's going on?"
No, nobody knows.
So Off Menu.
What's your favourite?
Love Louis Theroux. I've always loved Louis Theroux. So his podcast is brilliant. But I am really enjoying the Education Scotland one. Also love anything with ICT with Mr. P. He is he's always been hilarious in terms of like speaking about the reality of teaching is great. So yeah, I do love that.
Niall, do you remember being down in London and a certain Harriet and a certain Meg? They were reminding me of groupies with ICT with Mr. P. They were like totally fangirling over him.
I couldn't believe that it was a real person. I was like, what's he doing? I just used to love when he did the Oxford reading tree. You know, it was Mrs. May. Like, he used to read it.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I remember that.
Like, that was class. I just think
it's
like
funny,
people like got how the funny side of teaching. You know, like I've always thought kids are hilarious. Like, I just think that some of the things that you come away with, and I've always thought, I'd love to write a book about how funny just being in classes and what they come out with. But he's totally just nailed it. Like, he just
nailed it.
It's about the realities. So it was really good. Yeah.
So see while we're on the subject of groupie behaviour.
Yes.
Harriet, I heard this rumor that like you first met your husband because he was in a band and you were a bit fangirly over him. Is that true?
Yes. So my husband was in a Beatles band, and I loved the Beatles, so I used to drag.
Which one was he? Was
he was Ringo. But yeah, so he like did the Beatles tribute band, and I used to drag anyone. I was like, oh, do you like Beatles? Okay, come along. And we used to go along. And I remember as well, hilariously, one of the first times I spoke to him, I was going on about my kids, and he was thinking, how many kids has she got? Like, just, thinking about my class.
He's red flagging you straight away.
I was going, oh yeah, my kids, like blah blah, and he was thinking, okay, and then actually it turned out I was speaking about my class. But your class are your kids.
Yeah,
they are. Every class I've had are my kids. You know, they are.
Definitely. We didn't talk about Harriet's award.
No, we've not. We need to.
Yeah. So Harriet, big news on LinkedIn this week. Big news breaking on LinkedIn, and actually so happy for you. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened and how this all came about? And tell us about your Rising Star Award.
I don't know. Like, I am the world's worst at speaking about myself. I think, like, if this was about someone else, I'd be like, this is amazing that this has happened to them. But I find it so embarrassing. But yeah, I think someone nominated me for a Rising Star Award. And yeah, I basically, when I got the email, I thought, oh, this is... Like, at first I thought,
it's a wind up? Like, is this a joke?
Yeah. I looked into it and I thought, oh no, this is an award, but why have I been nominated, kind of thing.
Oh, Harriet, that's such a Scottish response.
I know. And then it asked me to put a little summary of like what I did, and I didn't even spend a lot of time on it. So like, I'm kind of embarrassed to read it because I didn't think it would go on a website or anything. So
well, do you know what? Well done.
Thank you. But yeah, it's amazing. And when you read all the other stories of people that are rising stars, I'm like, oh my goodness, why am I in with them?
You are absolutely deserve 100% to be in there. Harriet Benbow, you are a rising star.
Oh, thank you very much. But I feel like the whole digital community is, because everyone's doing the same thing. We're all fighting that good fight.
We're all trying.
And I think like that's the best thing about like, the digital job was having such an amazing digital community. Everyone is so incredible, and being part of like the MIEE and Apple Teacher, all these different communities is amazing, because you actually do meet up with people and you think, oh, like, you're doing the same thing and you're finding that this is tricky as well. So I think in everything you do, you need to have your allies, you need to have your people you go to, and just have your buddies, because I think that's what I've definitely found over the past few years, is that it's really good to have loads of people you can go to and just have a chat and, you
Yes.
know, I think support each other and lift
Yeah.
each other up, because I think sometimes you just need someone to say, oh, well done, that was great. And, you know, like it sounds a bit childish, I guess, saying like you need praise, but sometimes you do just need to hear someone say,
You do.
that was a really good job you did on that. And
Yeah.
like I try my hardest to do that with anyone I'm working with. Because I just think that it's really important to recognise when someone's working hard.
And actually, most music learners are listening to is probably digital. And actually,
Absolutely.
that's where to meet them, eh? That's where to engage them. And yet we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing it. So they probably all have to sit with a little Casio keyboard and 25
Yeah.
other people
Mhm.
and plinky plink along to some
Yeah.
nursery
DJ,
I know.
rhyme. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, probably the Sky
I
Boat
know.
song or something.
It's so true though. And even
Yeah.
podcasting, like why are we not doing more
Yeah.
podcasting in schools?
Yeah.
Even if, you know, even if we're not wanting it to be out in, you know, the web where anyone can access it, there's ways of us doing that as a kind of skill for
Mhm.
them to develop. And imagine them sharing their learning through a podcast rather than having
Honestly,
to
Harriet,
posters.
like, I taught English. English is my subject. The
Yeah,
number of English, like it ticks every single box
Mm.
on, you know, structure and language and it's the
Yeah.
same skills, eh? It's just a
Yeah,
modern context.
definitely. And I think hopefully the new curriculum will.
Hopefully.
Really am hopeful. Like, you know, what I've heard and what I've read so far, it does sound like they're
Yeah,
listening to people.
good.
It sounds like what educators are saying about the curriculum for excellence and how it is at the moment, they're taking on board and they're developing, which is really promising. And I just really hope it does kind of give us more free rein on, you know, podcasting and things like that. But you just need the devices, which
Yes.
Well, that's it. I mean, surely we're talking about like universal design for learning as a kind of, you know,
yeah,
that idea that just, you know, go and find out about something and then show what you know
Mhm.
about it in whatever way suits you.
yeah,
Like what we do in
exactly.
life. Like,
Well, it's even
yeah,
all this stuff about the flipped classroom.
Mhm.
It's so true. Like, you know, you could easily be telling children to go and develop something and kind of build on their own learning, where they're at with their learning. It makes things so much more adaptive for them.
Yeah.
yeah,
And, you know, it harnesses curiosity as well, which
yeah,
again, I feel like it's one of the negatives of technology is there's a lack of curiosity because everyone has answers at their fingertips. So they
Yeah.
well,
sometimes want to just, so like, I think that's where, again, the right things need to be getting taught in
Mhm.
school. It's not just about putting devices in front of kids and saying research. Because that
yeah,
used to be always,
exactly. Because that always, oh, research and do a PowerPoint.
yeah. And yeah, so it's about more than that. And um I think, to be fair, with AI and all the stuff with AI, I feel like there's more educators that are curious about digital
Yes.
now. And I think it's bringing digital back to the forefront of people's minds. So I think
Mhm.
like it's maybe brought on a few more people in terms of like learning some digital skills.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think because it's so personalized and they get something out that is relevant to them almost
Yeah,
immediately. I think
yeah.
that's going to be a massive changer there. Yeah.
And we don't get the backlash when we're doing like I go out. I got clapped out the room a couple of weeks ago in Alloa, an AI. I've never
That's
been clapped
brilliant.
out the room in my life. Like
Yeah.
normally you get everyone sitting like, "What are you going to say then? Eh?
I
What have we
know,
got to do now?"
Yeah.
And
I know.
actually clapped out the room, and I'm like, "Well, that was easy."
Fantastic. But do you not think that's because people see the relevance to it to them? Like they're
Yes.
seeing how that could
Yeah.
help them and it's
Yeah.
maybe taking something away. Whereas like I feel like sometimes, and like I definitely did it when I went and did digital training for people, I would train them on something And it was so hard to pitch because you had some people in the room that were quite confident. You had some people in the room that were like willing to give it a go, but then you also had the ones that were utterly terrified to even turn it on.
Yeah.
So it was hard to pitch your training, and then you would deliver the training, and then you just saw people looking like, how am I supposed to fit this into everything else I do? Like, they found an additional thing. Whereas I think they're maybe seeing where AI slots into stuff they're already doing, and where it might actually make things easier for them because it might reduce workload or, make things quicker, having a bit of automation. I think a lot of educators are seeing that might help them.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Have you heard is it bean soup analogy or the bean soup story? Have you seen that?
No.
This poor lady had put something out online, and it was about how this bean soup can help with like cramping or something in your body, right? And so she put out this video saying, this is how you make the soup. It's great, right? But then all of the comments were, I'm allergic to beans. What can I substitute? I don't have access to this ingredient. How will this help me? Or I get sore heads. Do you have something for that? And it's that personalization of everybody's like, well, how does this apply to me? How do I pull this into my world that they were kind of struggling with? And so I think AI is going to be that solution in the digital kind of respect for that. Of you can just add your own ideas. You can say, oh, it doesn't work for my learners. Give me something else instead. I think that's going to make the difference.
100%. I think that's the thing as well. Learners are very intrinsic. They think about themselves.
Yes.
And that. And to be able to actually make learning more personalized because you have time to do that, and because you can do that with a click of a button, is going to be so powerful. If you could change your lesson to suit interests of, especially in the younger classes, if you can grab, you're interested in dinosaurs today, great, well, we're going to learn about dinosaurs. And if you could do that quickly, that is a brilliant hook, because that's what we need to do. But the reality is we have to plan our lessons at least a week in advance. We've got a lot of things to fit in. So I think if you could be a little bit more adaptable because you've got these tools that help you.
It's just being agile. Do you know what? It's being agile, isn't it? It's that like project management approach we apply to everything else in life. You need to be agile, and like
when you were saying about the dinosaurs there, the other day I had a student that was really interested in dinosaurs, and they're
it's
one
always
of the younger
dinosaurs,
ones.
Isn't it?
It's always dinosaurs. I whacked into Copilot, create me a story about this child who meets the dinosaur in XYZ. But I asked it to put in the name Ben because I didn't want to put in the child's real name. So it created me this story. I then did, I put it into a Google Doc. I did find and replace, and I replaced every time it said Ben with the child's name. And then that child then read it, and it was like their eyes just went, oh my goodness, it's me. I'm going out to the dinosaur world and I'm catching these dinosaurs.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, I thought it was just a nice way to use AI for those students.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Harriet, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Oh, it's been great. I know, and thank you. Finally managed to do it.
I could actually chat to you for like the next hour.
Oh, I know.
A massive thank you to Harriet for joining both Pam and me for the Digitize Fully Charged podcast. Please do go and check us out on social media. You'll find us at Digitize Crew on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're on Reddit. We're on absolutely anywhere that you can imagine. Please do follow us. Check out the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're on Amazon Podcasts. If you're able to drop us a wee star rating, we would really appreciate that. And let us know in the comments what your favourite parts were, if you agree, if you disagree with any parts. And yeah, we really do appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Digitize Fully Charged podcast. We have another guest lined up for next week, so please do check back in on Tuesday, and we'll see you again then. Cheers. Bye.